Welcome back to the Survival Gardener Minute. I'm David the Good, and today's question is from Branislav, who asks about what he should use to make his compost bins with. Plastic, wood, pressure treated, concrete. Well, you can see the bins behind me here. These are made from concrete, and they have concrete in the bottom of them. Sometimes people will tell you, don't put concrete in the bottom of your compost. Don't put a bottom on your compost pile. The worms won't get in it. No, that's insane. Like, worms will totally get into it. They don't care. They'll climb around at night. They climb around the ground and stuff. I mean, they go wandering around over the surface of the ground. Look, don't worry about stuff not getting into it. The reason I like a concrete base to them is because trees, like this starfruit right behind me, will often put their roots right up into a compost pile. So I like to put a compost pile underneath the tree because it's less useful space, and whatever leaches out of it goes to the base of the tree. But the tree will rapidly find the compost pile and get into it, just like your worms will. So I like a concrete pile if I was going to do a permanent one. This one is not as well built as I would like because the guy that I hired didn't do concrete properly, and he didn't put in the wire and everything in the concrete. So one day this may actually just collapse and I'll have to rebuild it. But if you build it properly, this 3-bin type system is really useful and works really well. And this one is working great for me so far. I just don't know how long the lifespan will be on it. But if you have any kind of an enclosure for compost, like you could put some pallets together, work really well. I've got a video on making compost bins out of pallets. If you just put a ring of hardware cloth and make it big enough, the sweet spot for compost is to get that cubic yard, because that's about the point where it starts to heat up if you want a hot compost pile. If you don't care about a hot compost pile, just mound stuff up somewhere and let it rot down, and over time it'll make really good cold compost. Nature will do it for you. The bin is not that important. I have used an old big piece of galvanized metal that was like the casing from some sort of a machine. I really like that one because dogs couldn't climb up into it. I have used I actually had an old dishwasher at one point that I made into a vermicomposting system with worms. So what I wouldn't use is like nasty enamel painted stuff or something that's really toxic like that. But even pressure treated wood, I'm not that worried about it. You know, pressure treated wood used to have arsenic in it. You can see that there's pressure treated wood there. Now it's copper and sulfur compounds, which are not as toxic. So I'm not worried about that really at all. There's probably more stuff coming down from chemtrails up above than there would be in there. So yeah, whatever. I'm not going to tell you have to do this type of bin or that type of bin or whatever bin, but basically any kind of a box that will hold at least a cubic yard of material. I tend to like 4 foot by 4 foot at least. Because I want to make a volume of it. You only really need one bin. You continually compost in it, and you don't even need a bin. I have just hammered stakes in the ground and layered materials in it and wet it, and then covered with a rough layer of carbon material on top, and had that work just great. So the most important thing is that you start composting. There's tons and tons of food waste that ends up in the landfills every year, and I think that is the stupidest thing. And the regular rules on composting are absolutely ridiculous. Don't throw in bones, don't throw in meat, make sure you don't throw this in, make sure you don't throw this in, make sure you don't put too much paper in or bread or oils or whatever. No, just take all the stuff out of your kitchen, all the organic matter, throw it in a big pile. It will rot. Don't worry about it. Nature does it all the time. What do you think happens to an animal that dies in the woods? It rots down and it becomes food for the environment. So instead of telling people, look, just go ahead and compost it all, just make it critter proof, you know, if you're in the city, and compost everything, you get these big, stupid lists of rules, and then people just throw it in the landfill because it looks like composting is rocket science. It's not. And if you want to know why it's not, obviously check out my book, Compost Everything, The Good Guide to Extreme Composting, where I make composting really simple, the way nature does. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe as we do these Survival Gardener Minutes on through the apocalypse. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.